Golazo is here, and we have James Benge recapping the championship playoff action, and we have Jimmy Conrad to preview Tuesday's action, including a huge game, a repeat of the F.A Cup final as Chelsea face Leicester City for a Champions League spot. We're doing a fun Premier League parlay partay. Qué Golazo Tuesday begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo, our Tuesday episode. We have Jimmy Conrad later on to discuss Premier League matches for Tuesday, but first, James Benge. James, it's been so long. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm glad to be called back up to the big leagues, talking about the big leagues, the biggest, best leagues at this time of year.
Absolutely. Hey, the Knicks are in the playoffs, James Benge.
Yeah, 4 seed.
Let's go, baby.
I think we're winning a round.
I totally agree. I think we're going all the way. We here, baby. We here. Listen, we're not going to bore everybody with our Knicks fandom, but we might maybe later on. But today, obviously, Tuesday, we're going to preview Tuesday's matches, of course, in the Premier League. But with James Benge, I wanted to recap last night's championship action. But before we do that, James Benge, interesting things developing this week about Harry Kane. Harry Kane and his future with Tottenham. Reports coming out that he's requested to leave Tottenham. And apparently before the Euros begin, you know, things are obviously always developing. But what do you make of this? What's going on? Is Harry Kane leaving?
Yeah, as I understand it, and obviously this has been widely reported elsewhere and has been the narrative around Kane for a while. But as I understand it, he has sort of indicated to the club through channels that kind of lead to senior people, to Daniel Levy. He sort of indicated that he would like to move on. Spurs obviously do not want him to go, would really like him to change his mind on that. And even if he decides to go, you know, they will demand a huge price for him. You know, there is talk of interest in England, Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United. They're the teams really credited with an interest and that could theoretically do this deal if they wanted to. I know that Pep Guardiola is a great admirer of Kane, and we know City will be on the lookout for a striker this summer. As for the other clubs, Chelsea, politically a really challenging one. Manchester United do need a striker, do have the money, theoretically. But yes, you know, this is a significant moment. You know, there have been, I think, certainly we've known about Kane's doubts kind of throughout this season, certainly throughout 2021. And there have been moments in time, you know, kind of throughout his Tottenham career. He's said all along he wants to win trophies. And I think it's kind of been clear to him this season that it's a way off. And obviously he is now approaching his 28th birthday, I believe. 3 years left on his 3 years left on his contract. So this is kind of the if not the last chance saloon, then very much the, you know, kind of a key pivot point for his career.
Yeah. One quick question, because obviously there's still reports and things are going to be ongoing, etc. But one of the things apparently is that he wants to stay in the Premier League. So they might be, you know, I'm hearing actually even from French reports that maybe he's been talking to Pochettino as well. I mean, who knows, right? But, you know, there's talk that he wants to stay in the Premier League. But obviously, I would be very surprised, James, if he stays, if Daniel Levy sells him to a Premier League team. What more can you say about that?
I agree. I think it's still hard to see the middle ground between what Levy would value Kane at, especially if he's selling him to a rival, and what clubs would value Kane. I think it's fair to say that he's as good now as he's ever been. You know, we're seeing him now top of the league in assists and you know, very much in the race for the Golden Boot. But he is getting older. You know, he probably doesn't have much resale value. So that's all things that clubs would have to factor in. Levy has done business with Manchester United before, and Manchester United will tell you it was like pulling teeth, but he's done it. I think Chelsea would be the one that you could see them matching the asking price, but I think, you know, we have to remember that underlying all this is an awful lot of discord and debate and unhappiness from Tottenham fans aimed at Levy post Super League. no Tottenham fan wants Kane to go. I think the argument of a neutral might well be, look, a 9-figure sum for Kane right now. You could, rebuild your squad, give yourself a squad that can compete for top 4, compete for even more. But Tottenham fans, most of them, I would say, don't want to hear that. They want Kane to stay, because why wouldn't you? The other thing to bear in mind when we talk about him staying in England, that Premier League record, it's not beyond his reach. If he scores 20 goals a season into his mid-30s, he will probably end up the highest scorer in Premier League history. And it's a tough one, because Kane has said he wants team honours, and we know, Kane wants to win the biggest prizes. The two things are, one, the best chance of winning the biggest prizes is to go to somewhere like Man City or Chelsea. And also you do get then the bonus of the individual accolades of probably being the best, one of the best strikers in Premier League history. And he will think about that.
All right, well, let's play a game here. Let's play a game, because, I remember watching when Thierry Henry talked to him a few years ago, and he in 2017, and he was like, look, I'm going to be very disappointed if I don't get, a certain number of trophies by the time whatever. So to your point about where he could go for this, Man City saying goodbye to Sergio Aguero, I don't know exactly what their interests are in terms of a Haaland or whatever, but if Harry Kane suddenly says that he's available and Tottenham are having to force to sell him, I would think that that's probably your best bet in the Premier League. I mean, Manchester United just signed an extension with Cavani. I don't know. You said, obviously, that it's difficult to deal with Tottenham from a Manchester United perspective. Chelsea makes sense, but then I'm thinking about Tuchel's system and how he really mainly prioritizes. Well, I mean, but it is Harry Kane, so he could make room for his tactics. Where do you see him going if he goes, or do you see him staying?
So, I mean, I would still slightly lean towards staying. At the start of this season, I would have given maybe a 5% chance of him leaving. I would push that up to 35, 40%. I think it's getting tight. If you said to me, I wouldn't be shocked anymore. If he goes anywhere, I would think City, partly because obviously there's interest in Haaland from City, but it seems to me, and no expert on Bundesliga football, but the fact that Dortmund have got in the Champions League kind of makes you think Haaland's off the table this summer. And I don't think Haaland's as great a fit for Guardiola as Kane is. Kane would fit really well in a Guardiola football team.
I agree. Better than Haaland. I think so. Yep.
I mean, and if anyone can afford to just sort of throw away 100 million and know they're not recouping it, it's a team like City. So I would say I would make City I would still say slight favourite. He stays at Tottenham this season, next season, but I would make City quite strong favourites after that. Man United, whoever succeeds Ed Woodward, and a bit Ed Woodward, could be swung by the commercial implications and all that. What sells signings at Man United. Tough one to read. I still think he'll probably be at Tottenham but then I would put City, United not too far behind, and Chelsea a real dark horse. Maybe PSG, but I think he would want to stay in England. Yeah,
because that's pretty much reported what's happening. And I would imagine, I remember you telling me before we even started taping that I think that if he were to leave for another Premier League team, I think the chances of being a London team is even less likely.
He's a boyhood Arsenal fan. Was at the Arsenal Academy as a kid.
Can you imagine?
Oh, yes, I can.
Amazing. Well, we will keep track of this. Of course, a big story as well as we move on. James Benge on CBS Sports, etc. But James, let's talk about the Championship players for a second. We had 2 games on Monday night. Both ended in 1-0. One of them was Bournemouth, the home side, winning 1-0 against Brentford. And the other one, Swansea visiting Barnsley, losing 1-0. So 2 1-0s there, all to play for on Saturday. What'd you make of the games? I mean, one of them was very championship-ish, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, it was. Well, I feel like it was probably, if you said to a lot of coaches in that was a championship game, they'd get very snooty and they'd go, no, this isn't how we play in this competition anymore. But Barnsley are that. Barnsley are the archetypal English team. They are a joy to watch. People get really sniffy and call it long. Well, they say long ball as if it's disparaging. I loved it.
Amazing.
I think everyone sort of with a US interest has watched quite a bit of Barnsley over the last few months. And even though I thought in the first half in particular, they weren't quite their best selves, the intensity with which they attack, the ferocity of their press, the physicality of DK, and actually you do blend that with Moa and who's a really, really nice ball player, and Woodrow. They weren't quite there though. Having said that, I thought they pushed Swansea, who were very much, I thought, as good as I've seen them in the last few weeks when I really sort of lasered in on the Championship. I thought they pushed them really hard. The difference was Swansea just had that one moment. Andre Ayew, real composure, excellent goal. A reminder of, the quality of some of the players at Championship level at the moment, that someone like Ayew, who's still only 31, putting an absolutely brilliant shot into the far corner. It's probably the one moment where someone took a breath, and just, that's what the reward was. I mean, Woodman was fantastic, but for me, I thought that the thing that really stood out, and we were only watching this on TV, obviously, Oakwell sounded phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wishing I was there. It just was brilliant. Just hearing the fans.
Yeah.
You could tell. It doesn't feel anodyne. It doesn't feel fake. It felt brilliant.
Yeah, it's just a proper Championship game and a proper British game, a proper English game, and it just felt good to see fans and hear them as well. Obviously, we saw that in the FA Cup, etc. Very quickly on Bournemouth, Brentford. I mean, I have Brentford and Swansea in the final before these two games even started. I'm sticking with that, but Bournemouth honestly surprised me a little bit. I mean, we know how resilient they can be recently in the Premier League, etc. Jonathan Woodgate managing them. We know his history as a player. Obviously, he has them very organized. That goal, very good from a counter-attacking perspective. But I still have Brentford ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I would still kind of gravitate towards Brentford. I feel like Ivan Toney obviously got a bit of a knock in the first half, and although he played through, I didn't think he was the same.
He didn't look 100%, did he?
Yeah. It's really hard. Bournemouth kind of have not set the world alight, but you just look at the quality of that counter-attack in particular. And, those two wide forwards, Brooks is a player that Man United were looking at last summer that would probably have gone to the Premiership Premier League when Bournemouth went down if he hadn't had injuries. And then on the other flank, Danjuma is wonderful. You can see why he's been in the Dutch squad before. Yeah. And that counter-attack was just the moment of supreme quality. Brentford had a few of them. Jensen obviously hitting the side netting. And I think if Rico Henry's good to go in the second leg, he's probably the best left back in the league, and he could give them a real test. And just the one thing to point out as well, maybe our listeners aren't aware, no away goals in the Championship playoffs. So that generally means you get higher probability of extra time, higher probability of extra drama, but equally kind of means that you have to kind of reassess how you think about these ties, because actually now it is just a 1-goal margin. There's no extra advantage for Swansea that they scored, other than they're coming back to their stadium, and there's no particular problem for Brentford that they didn't. And I think at the Brentford Community Stadium, they're so strong on their own patch. I would still favour them.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't, but it's going to be tight. And because there's no away goals as well, that makes it even more interesting. And anyway, both games happen on Saturday. And then the Championship playoff final is the day after the Champions League final as well. So that weekend will be nice and busy. James Benge, thank you so much, man. Final thoughts on anything before? Who do you have? Chelsea Leicester City play later today. Who do you have in that game?
Chelsea Leicester. I went Chelsea. Yeah, I just, how amazing was that FA Cup final?
Oh, incredible.
Hearing you guys talk about it on the weekend recap, what a game. But clearly, how could Leicester not be hungover? Quite literally hungover. We know how Jamie Vardy likes to party, and I remember what happened after they'd won the league. So I think Leicester may be actually hungover, and Chelsea just need it. I thought there were some little tweaks. Get Pulisic in the lineup. If Kovacic is fit, get him in so you've got someone running from deep, and I think they'll be all right. But yeah, I'm sure I'll hear what Jimmy and you guys and yourself have to say in the second half.
Yeah, no, I don't think we'll be disagreeing too much, but you will find out very soon. We're going to take a quick break. Jimmy Conrad will preview the entire day as well. But James Benge, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much, my man.
Thank you.
The NBA playoffs are about to begin. Join the Early Edge podcast every single day for the best bets, props, and futures of this year's postseason. Jonathan Coachman, Mike McClure, and Larry Harstein won't lead you astray as they bring the best bets to your feed every morning in 15 minutes or less. You can find the Early Edge on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and even live on YouTube. And go Knicks! Hey everybody, welcome back to Qué Golazo. This is now our Tuesday preview, and who else do you ask joins me? Of course, Jimmy Conrad. Jimmy, what's up, man?
I prefer the illustrious Jimmy Conrad next time, Luis Miguel, but I'll take this for now. I appreciate your energy. It's fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm so happy to see you and speak to you once again, Jimmy Conrad in the Hizzy, and this is Tuesday, our Tuesday preview. And Jimmy Conrad, people think, oh, the relegation battle's over. Man City's champion. It's done, right? No, it's not done. Champions League spots up for grabs in the Premier League. And we have to begin with a repeat of the FA Cup final as Chelsea now host Leicester City. This is huge, Jimmy, huge. Chelsea in fourth with 64 points. Leicester City in third with 66 points. Leicester City, a draw could be good for them, but for Chelsea, they need a win. What do you have? What do you say?
I guess I want to have a conversation with you and for everybody listening in terms of mentality. You coming off an FA Cup final. Leicester City win it for the first time in their history. That's ridiculous, right? So emotional. You get to see an owner who's being embraced by the players and the coaches, like the stark contrast to the Super League owners, okay? And it's just such a warm, amazing moment. And then you have this, and so what do they do? So let's start there. Leicester comes off of that, and you've accomplished something that's never been done in 137 years. You have to play the same team 3 days later. That's an interesting mentality. So let's just start there. And then on the flip side, you got Chelsea, who are coming off probably their worst week under Thomas Tuchel. Lost to Arsenal, now making this top four thing a little more squeaky. And then you lose in the FA Cup final where you were the heavy favorites. Now, you didn't play particularly poor in those games. You had more shots, you had more possession, but you gave up the first goal. And when you give up the first goal, it looks like you're having a tough time finding answers. So what's their mentality? Who do you start? There's a lot of unknowns. I think Leicester will probably try to roll out as good of a team as possible, assuming everybody's healthy, but they're missing Johnny Evans, who I thought when he went out in the 30th minute of the FA Cup final, I'm like, it's done and dusted. Timo Werner is definitely going to take advantage of that now. Okay, well, this version of Timo Werner, when he's not wearing an RB Leipzig jersey, is a little bit different, but so that's, I want to go into that mentality thing because Chelsea's going to feel a little burned, but they're a little vulnerable right now. And I think if Leicester City can score first again, especially early on, Chelsea could really find themselves in no way this is happening. We were in last week. We were in two finals and top four was secured. We were like the best Chelsea team of all time. And within 7 days, it's like, maybe we might not have anything to show for this season, which would be incredible. So I really wonder, and I want to talk mentality with you a little bit, Luis, because I think that Chelsea are up against it in a way they haven't been under Tuchel, and I want to see how they respond.
Yeah, very good point. Mentality is the theme here. I'm with you, man. Listen, a few things. One, do you think? I'll throw my answer as a question right back at you. Do you think that Chelsea are gonna completely change their tactics? Do they need a natural number 9 in this one, or do you think that Tuchel's gonna be stubborn because he thinks, you know what, we did have opportunities in this game, and it wasn't like we were overwhelmed by Leicester City. It's just that we weren't putting our chances away. What do you think, aside from Chelsea's mentality, which is, I guess, a little nervy, as you said, because they need a victory, right? Just to add to the scenario, it's very simple for Leicester City. They win, they got to secure the place in the Champions League, okay? If they draw, okay, qualification basically will be in their hands, but they need to beat Tottenham on the final day, okay? Chelsea need to win here. They need to get, because Liverpool's right there behind them. So that mentality is really weak. What do you think Tuchel's going to put out there against Leicester City?
That's a good question. I do think he is stubborn in some ways, but I also think that he's been around long enough that he might have to tinker a little bit with regard to potentially starting positions. So maybe Reece James goes inside because Leicester City do like to play with two strikers with Vardy and Iheanacho. We saw it happen during the game, but I actually thought that tactic didn't work because Reece James was the one who was playing in somewhat of an unfamiliar position, a little tucked inside a little bit more than usually out wide. He tries to risk a tough pass. It gets cut out by Ayoze Perez, and that starts the break where Tielemans scores. So that, I don't know. That's interesting. We'll see what he does there. I do think that Kai Havertz will come back into the team. I think they need a little bit more, maybe size up top just to try it. I think that Leicester could drop off, and that eliminates what makes Werner a little bit special, is having that speed to stretch defenses. And
Pulisic needs to start, Jimmy.
Dude, listen, right? I'm trying to hold off my American bias, but yes,
I'll do it for you, Jimmy. I'll do it for you. I am definitely the last person to be like, Pulisic. I'm not. He needs to start because exactly what Chelsea need is a direct threat going wide, an inverted winger that's just going at you. And that's Pulisic. You need to start him. You have to. I just don't see any other way.
Yeah, I don't see any other way either. When he comes into the game, it changes things. And honestly, as I thought about the FA Cup final some more, I thought it took Thomas Tuchel a long time to make subs. I thought it took him.
Yeah.
That kind of speaks to his stubbornnness. No, I'm sticking with Timo Werner. This is what's working, and his rigidity, at least in this particular game, it just didn't work. It had been working. So it's really interesting, but I think Pulisic starts. I think he'll play underneath Havertz. Mount will probably be in there. My guess is Jorginho, who made the mistake against Arsenal. Kovacic apparently is starting to train again, but he just doesn't have those minutes. It's been a while. He's missed 10 games with a hamstring injury, Kovacic. So I still think Jorginho will play, even though he hasn't been as sharp. Chilwell will come in. I'm kind of curious who's going to be the wing back out wide. Is it James? Is it Azpilicueta? Mendy will be in. So that'll hopefully, no disrespect to Kepa. I thought he was fine throughout the FA Cup run, but and then Rudiger and Thiago Silva is kind of what I'm seeing. So it'll be a good team, but honestly, it's that first goal. It's where is Chelsea going to get that confidence right now? And the only way it's coming, Luis, is through a goal. They have to score.
Yeah.
And if they score first, then I think Chelsea will relax, then settle in and play like they've been playing and take it from there. But if Leicester score first, there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered by Chelsea that they don't have, at least this past week, haven't had a lot of answers for.
Yeah, it will be squeaky bum time. It hasn't been it's been uncomfortable for Chelsea as of late, both the men and women's side. So this is huge. If Chelsea win, then the destiny of a Champions League spot, once again, of course, there's a Champions League final as well against Man City. But from a Premier League perspective, if they win, then all they need to do is, match or better the results of Leicester in the final day of the season. If they draw, then they need help from others. And if they lose, of course, yeah, it would be rough.
And then we've been talking kind of heavy on Chelsea, but Leicester, you would think, are going to have an emotional letdown afterwards because this game still matters to them. A draw would probably be enough for them to solidify their top 4 status, even though I don't think it's mathematically solidified. That said, I don't know. Is it going to give them a boost after winning? Like, oh man, we just beat these guys. We did something they didn't. We won a trophy. How long will that carry them for? Because you're going to they were clearly celebrating after the game. Even if you're a manager, Brendan Rodgers, you're like, hey guys, can you just tamp it down for? It's a special thing to win the FA Cup and especially the first time in club history. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see, but I expect the full team. I expect to see all the guys. The only change I would make is maybe James Maddison starting for either Ayoze Perez. Mm-hmm. And then I thought Iheanacho wasn't really that effective. So you could potentially put Vardy as the out and out number 9 and maybe have Maddison and Ayoze Perez play underneath. It's just, I think it's up to Brendan Rodgers, who's famous, by the way, for making these like surprise tactical adjustments in games, of him maybe trying something and trying to maybe occupy N'Golo Kante and Jorginho in a way that maybe he wasn't doing in the first one. But if you can somehow find Tielemans to have some space, he's good at obviously shooting from distance, as we saw, and just creating from that. So we'll see. It's a really interesting game. I think them knowing that Johnny Evans won't be available right from the get-go helps them almost match. I think they're going to play 3 center backs like we saw. I think it'll be Castagne, Fofana, and Soyuncu, and that'll be very similar to Chelsea's setup. So, ultimately, like any game, your big guys need to show up and make big plays in the big ones. And we're going to see which ones can and which ones won't. And then we'll rightly criticize whoever can't do it afterwards.
Yep, absolutely. It's really great to be a Monday morning quarterback.
It's amazing. I absolutely love it. So
Monday, Tuesday. Well, what's William Hill saying?
So on William Hill, sorry, I had it all written down on my laptop here. I'm really looking at two things, because we look at the 27 games that Thomas Tuchel has coached. 23 of them have had under 2.5 goals. Chelsea doesn't win all of them, but that's 23 out of 27.
Yeah, the ongoing theme is just not a lot of goals.
Not a lot of goals.
Yeah.
Not a lot of goals. So if you people at home, Luis, Miguel, Echegaray, if you and Lisa Roman, who's has
our bookie,
to listen to us, yes, our bookie / producer. If you're feeling Chelsea will win this one, and under 2.5 goals is plus 270.
Okay.
The only other thing I'm looking at is the draw on under 2.5 goals plus 333. So you have the 0-0, you have the 1-1 covered for that, and then Chelsea when you have 1-0 and 2-0.
Yeah.
I for me, those are the only two things I would really throw at you to consider. I'm going to do a parlay today. We'll get into that in a little while, but this is a game I'm a little iffy about because there's so much on the mental side of this in terms of energy and confidence and just having the composure to actually, put the ball at your feet and go make plays without worrying about this overarching theme, especially from a Chelsea perspective of we might not have anything to show for this season, even though we should be in the top 4 and we were in 2 cup finals.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a draw, mainly because it took a worldie to get a result this past weekend. It was very tight, and they have 2 very good goalkeepers, and that was Kepa, a good goalkeeper. Now you're introducing a better one in Edouard Mendy. I just, I don't see that. I definitely stick with the theme, less than 2.5 goals. I definitely stick with the mentality aspect of things. I don't know if Leicester City will win. I think that Chelsea will be perhaps more, I don't want to say organized because they're always organized, but a little bit more ready, especially during the 90 minutes. I don't know. I draw is good, but I do like the parlay idea. So let's just stick with our parlay, I guess. Or do you want to finally, somebody wants to do an individual bet?
I can see a 1-1 here. So I'm going to say, I could see a 0-0 here, to be honest. So I'm just going to say
I actually see a stalemate in this one.
I could see I'm just going to say the draw at under 2.5 goals plus 333.
That's very good.
I like that value. And if we want to stick it into our parlay, then we can.
Well, we always want to draw in a parlay, don't we? So
we do. That's true. You always want. If you want to have 3 or 4 team parlay, sometimes it's nice to have a draw in there. It's pretty rare when you get all the winners right.
All right. Well, we're doing a parlay. We're gonna hopefully go with that draw, but we might change our mind. So we'll see. We're gonna. By the way, this is a Premier League theme because there are plenty of games on Tuesday in the Premier League. Manchester United host Fulham. Southampton host Leeds United, who are still edging closer for a top half finish, which is pretty amazing. Brighton they host, the champions Manchester City as well. So where do you want to go?
We can go Brighton, Man City. We'll just kind of pick up where you left off. What's interesting is that a couple of players from Brighton are missing, Lewis Dunk in particular, their captain and center back. I think that is going to be a tough one for Brighton to overcome. What I find interesting, I guess the conversation for me is if you're Pep Guardiola and you have the Champions League final on the horizon, you've already won the Premier League. At what point do you start to, you want to rest guys, you don't want to risk them for you want them to be fresh and you don't want to risk injury going up against Brighton in a meaningless game ultimately. But at the same time, you want your guys to be sharp for that Champions League final. So what point do you give them the minutes? That's the big question here. Now, Brighton's is going to be surviving. They're trying to survive in this one. And the last time, though, these two played back in January, Man City won at home 1-0. Brighton do a very good job of keeping things close. Yeah. And so I again, I'm looking at City to win in under 2.5 goals at plus 260. And I say this because they just gave up 3 goals to Newcastle. Though Ferran Torres came in and scored a hat trick, some good goals from Ferran Torres, by the way, in their 4-3 win. Yeah. They lost to Chelsea in the league 2-1 before that. So they've given up 5 goals in the last 2 games. And I just don't think at some point Pep's going to allow that to happen anymore. And because Brighton play pretty tight anyway, I could see this one being under 2.5 goals and City to win plus 260. I like that one a lot. And I do think you're going to see the majority. You got to give Ferran Torres another run out after a hat trick. So I think he'll start. And maybe that'll allow you to bring in Kevin De Bruyne as a sub, because you still want to. Outside of that, I think you're going to roll out most of your guys. Maybe Rodri gets a rest from what I'm seeing on my notes. Well,
don't forget, Jimmy, this is also probably now the sending off goodbye to Sergio Aguero, right? So
that's true. That's true. I mean, one of these last 2 games for sure. This one's away from home, though. I guess there's no fans.
To your point about Brighton holding things tight, they haven't conceded 3 goals since January 2nd against the Wolves. Every other game since then has been just 2 goals or 1.
Yeah. I mean, Brighton have only won 1 of their last 7, but 3 of those defeats have all been by 1 goal margins, I
see this as a Man City win, but a very tight one.
I think it's going to be tight. Some of the people I'm saying are that I'm, reading and all the research I'm doing are kind of going the over because City have scored 9 goals in their last 2 visits to Brighton.
Mm-hmm.
But given that they were 1-0 just a couple months ago, even without Lewis, Mape's out, and even though Dunk is out as well, there's just something about this Brighton team. They're plucky. I like that word. They're plucky. So there's also another one, though. If people think, okay, it is going to go the over, I don't want to touch the over under in terms of that. Man City to win and both teams to score is plus 225.
Pretty good.
That's not bad. It's just a matter of whether you think Welbeck and Lallana and Tau and Trossard can score. And
we're adding this in our parlay, Jimmy. So I say that this is a win for
City's
City, right?
going to win. City's in our parlay to win for sure.
Boom. So we got Chelsea Leicester City draw, and the parlay adding that with Man City winning against Brighton. Let's go to Southampton hosting Leeds United.
Okay.
Leeds United, amazing. I wrote a little thread about it this past weekend. It really needs to be reminded over and over again. 16-year absence, Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, the team it was strengthened, but not to a degree of ridiculousness, for a newly promoted team after 16 years. And now they're aging closer to a top half finish. And not only that, but, they're 6th most goals scored in the Premier League, I believe, out of any team. I mean, yeah, they concede a lot, but when they're on, they're on. And this is amazing. But Southampton is fixing things as of late. What do you have here?
Well, both teams, I never thought I'd say this about Southampton Leeds, but they've both won back-to-back games. Southampton beat Fulham most recently 3-1, and Leeds thrashed Burnley 4-0. Leeds won this fixture 3-0 back in February. And I just feel like Marcelo Bielsa's team's a little bit better. I know that when Danny Ings gets going, there's a lot of good confidence players on Southampton when they're starting to feel good about themselves. For me, it's a little bit, I don't know, as a fan, if I was a Southampton fan, I'd be pissed right now. You guys were in the FA Cup semifinals. You were, hovering near, top 6 for a while. You were part of the conversation. And now you start playing better when it doesn't matter anymore. Like that would piss me off as a fan. Oh, okay. Now when there's no pressure, you guys can perform. And so I'm kind of curious to see what the future of that club is, especially with their manager, Ralph Husenhuddle, who I heard is beloved as a human being, but I think people are a little tired of him as a coach because it's just not getting results. Yeah. I just don't know what Husenhuddle's going to roll out. I do think we'll have, Leeds will. I think Leeds is going to win. You got Phillips back in the team. Rafinha's back in the team. You got all these guys. He's going to rest a few people because I think, is it Robin Koch? How do you say that? And Matthias Clich. I think.
Yeah, Matthias Clich and Koch, yeah.
And both of those guys are going to be, I think this is interesting. Marcelo Bielsa is going to rest those 2 players for the last 2 games so that they're injury-free and ready to go for the Euros. And I thought that was really cool by Bielsa to really take that into consideration. Not a lot of managers would do that. And I know there's nothing to play for. They've already, nobody's getting relegated. Nobody's getting into Europe here. But I thought that was cool by Bielsa to acknowledge that. I think Leeds are better right now. I like Leeds. And the fact that Bednarek might not play for Southampton in the back line doesn't help them. So I'm gonna lead towards Leeds winning this one. And I'm riding or dying with the South American legend known as Marcelo Bielsa. But that's who I would go with in my parlay. But I'll confer with you.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If they win, they go as high as 8th because they have a better goal difference than Everton, who are on 56 points. Of course, Everton and Arsenal play on Wednesday, so temporarily at least. But they would go as high as 8th.
So if that happens, Do you think Marcelo Bielsa should be up for manager of the season? If they can finish in the top 10, maybe finish above Everton, which would be crazy. Ancelotti, like, what is even happening there? And Arsenal, and just kind of be, clipping the heels of the teams right above them? Or do you think it should be Brendan Rodgers?
Well, I think both should be in the mention, but I do believe that if Leicester City, the thing is, it's all about perspective, right? It's all about perspective and objective. What was Leeds United hoping for the end of this season? They were hoping to stay in the Premier League. That really was it, to be honest with you, right? A 15th, 16th placement. You get in the 12th. Oh, that's great. Now we're talking about the fact that they could end up as high as 8th. Probably, I doubt higher, because West Ham still have a slightly better goal difference, but they could equal 59 points in the final day of the season. That's remarkable.
It would be remarkable because of all the praise that I think we are offering up these other managers. Outside of, well, Pep obviously should be in the consideration for winning the title, and Brendan Rodgers, I think, should be in it for sure. But you can't count the FA Cup win, right? That shouldn't count on how you evaluate that. And David Moyes should be in there too. I mean, he's done really well with West Ham, but this is
Marcelo Bielsa's debut in the Premier League.
I understand. I mean, if David Moyes ends up dropping down and they're only got 1 point above Leeds or something by the end, I would be
with a newly promoted team after 16 years not being in the Premier League.
Right, I mean, and not having the same budgets. I mean, you're basically rolling out a lot of the championship players and hoping that they pan out, and they've panned out.
However, I see Southampton winning this.
Do you really?
I don't know why. Sometimes you got to go against the narrative, and I feel that that's narrative. Wow. Having said that, though, I would just go with Jimmy. If you think Leeds is winning, add it to the parlay.
Well, we'll give people both options, and they can see what they prefer.
Right. Well, let's move on because there's still obviously 2 other games as well. Man United against Fulham. Oh, no, sorry, one more game. Man United against Fulham. Okay, they got Champions League. Obviously, they're focusing a lot more for the Europa League final the following week. So to your point, Jimmy, about Man City, think about the Champions League final. This is really the same for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United. I know that you love to play Bruno Fernandes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but, you're playing a team that's already been relegated. What do you do here?
He's 100% playing Bruno Fernandes. It's not even a question. For me now, it's about solidifying. It's interesting. I feel like Man City, because guys have been injured and because they rotate so much, I don't know. I guess it feels a little bit different. With Man United, I feel like they need to identify and establish who their starting lineup is going to be in the Europa League, and then let them play together for these last 2 games just so they can develop that rapport, especially at center back, because Harry Maguire is not going to play in the Europa League final. So you have Lindelof and Bailly, and they need to get comfortable playing with each other and see as many repetitions and high pressure situations as possible. And that includes who is going to be sitting in front of them, right? Because if it's McTominay and Fred, McTominay and Pogba, Fred and Pogba, whatever the iteration is, when you're a center back, it's really helpful to know who your defensive midfielders are because of how they close down space and then how they cut out passing lanes, because that changes your angles in terms of how you defend as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of little things. And then not only that, from a central standpoint, but Bailly, if he's going to play the right center back, well, what's his relationship with Wan-Bissaka? And then conversely, Lindelof's usually on the right side. Okay, now he's got to get comfortable being on the left side and playing next to Luke Shaw. So there's all of these little things. And the only way you can get better at that is by playing in high pressure situations in big games. And yes, Fulham's already relegated, but it's still a test for them and a good opportunity to get those repetitions that they won't get in training. It's so much harder to replicate that in training. Yeah. So I expect United to come out. I expect United to win. Fulham haven't won at Old Trafford since 2003. And Fulham have been an absolute train wreck. They've scored 2 goals in their last 5 games. They don't look good right now. And I think United have a reason to kind of bring the heat, have a reason to set the pace, have a reason to set the tempo, high press, and start to work on. It's almost like Ole Gunnar could call up Scott Parker, the manager of Fulham, and say, hey, do you mind setting up like Villarreal so we can get practice? It honestly feels like that. That would be amazing if that actually happened. But
that's very funny.
But those are little things where, okay, hey, we just try to pretend Fulham are wearing Villarreal jerseys and let's see how we can press and try to win the ball and all that type of stuff. I mean, these are really good exercises for all these teams, and City could do the same. But I guess because City's playing a familiar opponent, it just feels different. But with United and Villarreal, that's going to be a cracking affair too, because Villarreal coming off a big 4-0 win against.
Yeah, I'm thinking all about the midfield for Manchester United, because also, we had Fabrizio Romano earlier this week, and, he was talking about, obviously, what the business that Manchester United does this summer also depends on the future of some midfielders. Paul Pogba is one. Donny van de Beek is another one. I wonder if he will get some minutes. Cavani obviously just extended as well. But to your point about at the back and getting used to each other, I guess Ole Gunnar Solskjaer already kind of knows what he wants. Mason Greenwood, once again, we'll probably see a little more featuring. So it's about, what kind of trio up front he gets, the midfield triangle. Does Fred get a break? Does he need a break? I guess to your point, Bruno Fernandes is the only definite. And then after that, we'll see what happens. I mean, I know that fans are not too happy with the Scott McTominay-Fred partnership every now and again.
But, I mean, they say that, but they're second in the Premier League and in the Europa League final. So
these fickle fans, Jimmy.
I get it. Fred,
and I'm including myself in that, by the way. So everybody, before you start tagging me, so.
No, Fred is what he is. I mean, I have a friend who is a diehard Man United fan and hates Fred with a passion.
Yeah.
He just refuses to believe that Fred is actually Brazilian because Fred can't pass, Yeah. And I'm like, dude, just lay off of Fred. I mean, he does a lot of the intangibles and covers so much ground that makes the game easier for the other players.
The role that he gets asked to do is not what you want him to do, and that's not his fault. He's trying to completely disrupt attention in the midfield. So, yes, is his passing sometimes a little questionable? Yes. That's not why he's in the starting 11.
You know whose opinion is the only one that matters in this conversation is Bruno Fernandes, because Bruno Fernandes will let you know right away who he prefers having behind him. Yeah. And I guarantee you that Ole Gunnar, who seems to be somewhat of a player whisperer, a player manager, it's probably, polls a couple of the players, but I would definitely trust Bruno Fernandes. Who makes the game easier for you, man? Who helps you do the work that you don't want to do? Who helps you continue to make sure you have the energy so that you can, Fred wouldn't be playing this regularly if Bruno Fernandes didn't like playing with him. So I'm just going to say that because he's the only player that honestly that matters in this, because he's the point on the top of that midfield. And if you have two workers behind you that are doing the job, then those are the guys you want to play with.
Yeah, 100%. And if you think Manchester United is second in the Premier League because of just, one player, whatever, it's also about protecting that midfield. So lay off him. But anyway, regardless of that, Manchester United winning this, yes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Though I said that about Eintracht Frankfurt over the weekend and Schalke came out.
Yeah, but that was
this
just
is different.
ridiculous.
This is different. This is different.
All right, so we have Chelsea Leicester draw, we have Man City win, we have Leeds win, and we have
I went Southampton first. Southampton win.
Don't do
United
that to
win.
me.
City
Is
win.
it because of me? Just because of me?
Yeah. Well, I just want to give people the options. So
okay. So what's the Southampton first? What's that?
So both both Manchester clubs to win, Southampton to win, and Chelsea Leicester draw. That parlay would be plus 1,900. So
come on now.
But let me switch Southampton to Leeds and see what happens.
All right.
1730.
All right. Either way.
Okay. So let's go back to Southampton, just so everybody knows. Just really quick, humor us for a second, and then we'll put Chelsea winning. Just if you feel like that's
okay.
That's the vibe. So if you have Southampton winning, both Manchester clubs winning, and Chelsea winning, that's plus 821.
That's good too.
It is. And I'll go to Leeds really quick. So if you got Leeds winning, both Manchester clubs winning and Chelsea winning, plus 736. Those are all four favorites winning.
Should we put like $5 on each one of those?
Yeah, why not?
Lisa, bookie, please write it down. This is what we want to do. We want to do 4 bets this week. All right. And
why not? We'll hit one of those.
We'll hit one of those.
I think we'll hit one of those.
We have to.
And then we're going to rub it in everybody's face the next show. And I'm here for it.
Jimmy, everybody knows we'll be quitting. Buying a boat. I don't know.
We're going to buy a boat with our $25.
Well, I know a Puerto Rican guy in South Bronx that can help me out with it. All right. Well, that's it. That's our Tuesday preview. Jimmy Conrad, final words before we say goodbye.
No, I'm just excited. We're getting to the end of the season and it's getting tight. And that's what we're here for. That's what we enjoy as fans, especially as a neutral, because I don't have any teams in it. So I can kind of laugh and poke fun at the ones that lose.
Exactly. And by the way, Jimmy will be with us, of course, for plenty more because there's so much more action later in the week, as well as Coupe de France. JJ will join us for that. Coppa Italia as well. There's a lot going on and I love it. Jimmy Conrad, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, LME.
Hey, everybody. I want to thank James Benge and Jimmy Conrad for joining me today. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on CBSSports.com and your CBS Sports app. We're on YouTube as well. Have a great rest of your day.